This is a story about a truck. It is about a 1972 Ford F-250 Highboy four-wheel drive in Wimbledon white, one of approximately 94 trucks, produced that model year with that exact paint and trim configuration, hand-assembled at the Ford Kansas City assembly plant in September of 1971, delivered to Bandera Ford in Bandera, Texas in May of 1972 for the sum of $3,842.75. It is about a 35-year-old auto restoration specialist in Fredericksburg, Texas, named Trav Henderson. Travis Henderson is German-Texan, the fourth generation of Hendersons in Gillespie County. His great-grandfather, Otto Henderson, arrived in Fredericksburg from Hanover, Germany in 1886 on the railroad spur that connected the San Antonio and Aransas Pass Railway to the German settlement founded by John O. Musabach 40 years earlier. Otto Henderson married a hill country German-speaking woman named Greta Hoffman in 1891. They had 4 children. They bought 480 acres of hill country grazing land off Texas Farm-to-Mark Road 1076, 12 miles south of Fredericksburg in 1893. The Henderson cattle ranch had been operating on that land continuously for 133 years. The truck was purchased new by Travis's grandfather, Walter "Pop" Henderson, in May of 1972. Walter Henderson was the third generation of Hendersons on the ranch. He had served as a United States Marine Corps Lance Corporal in Korea from 1952 to 1954. He had come home, married a Fredericksburg German-Texan schoolteacher named Lillian Schmidt, and spent the next 53 years running cattle on the same 480 acres his grandfather had purchased in 1893. He bought the F-250 specifically because his Ford Falcon Ranchero could no longer haul the trailer with 2 grown Hereford bulls. Walter Henderson drove the F-250 every day in every kind of hill country weather for 43 consecutive years. Walter Henderson passed the truck to his son, Augustus "Gus" Henderson, Doctor of Veterinary Medicine, in 2015. Dr. Augustus Henderson, known to every cattle ranch in Gillespie County simply as Doc Henderson, was the 4th-generation Henderson on the ranch and a large animal veterinarian practicing in Fredericksburg for 38 years. He passed the F-250 to his son Travis in November of 2019, 2 weeks before Doc Henderson died of complications from idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. This is also a story about Travis's wife, Sarah Henderson née Becker, a registered nurse at Hill Country Memorial Hospital in Fredericksburg, who died of metastatic breast cancer, stage 4, at 6:14 in the morning on October 11, 2023, in the upstairs bedroom of the same Henderson cattle ranch farmhouse her husband had grown up in. She was 33 years old. She left behind a husband and a 4-year-old daughter named Ren Henderson, who, on the afternoon of April 3, 2026, was 7 years old, wearing tan Justin cowboy boots and a child-sized Stetson hat, riding a 15-year-old quarter-horse mare named Sunday alongside her father's Ford F-250 in front of the same farmhouse that Otto Henderson had built in 1896, watching her father carry the cease-and-desist letter from Whitaker Auto Insurance Holdings of Dallas, Texas, into the front room of the farmhouse. And it is about Sloan Whitaker, 38 years old, Chief Executive Officer of Whitaker Auto Insurance Holdings, daughter of Reginald Whitaker of Whitaker Energy Capital, graduate of Yale Law School class of 2012 and the Wharton School of Business, class of 2015, owner of a Highland Park, Dallas estate, a Brewster Aspen, Colorado ski chalet, and a Round Top, Texas hobby ranch, and a woman who, on the afternoon of April 3, 2026, mailed an officially sealed legal letter from her Whitaker Auto Insurance corporate offices in downtown Dallas accusing Travis Henderson of insurance fraud and salvage title fraud, and who, 14 days later, would lose her insurance license, her board seat, her marriage, and her father's company. This is a story about a truck and the Texas Department of Motor Vehicles registration receipt that Doc Henderson filed in May of 1972. The Henderson Cattle Ranch occupies 480 acres of Texas hill country limestone between Live Oak Creek and the headwaters of the Pedernales River, 12 miles south of Fredericksburg, Texas, on Farm-to-Market Road 1076. The ranch entrance is marked by a hand-forged iron sign that reads, Henderson Cattle Ranch, Gillespie County, Texas Est. 1893. Beside the sign hangs a smaller wooden plaque, weather-faded, hand-painted by Walter Henderson in 1976. We are German. We are Texan. We are here. The ranch farmhouse, built by Otto Henderson in 1896 from local hill country limestone quarried 2 miles, up the creek, sits on a small rise overlooking the south pasture. The farmhouse has a wraparound porch on 3 sides. The porch faces west to catch the hill country sunset. The front room has been the kitchen for 130 years. Behind the farmhouse, 50 yards uphill, sits a metal-roofed pole barn that Walter Henderson built in 1978. The pole barn houses Trav Henderson's restoration shop, Henderson Heritage Restoration, specializing in 1967 to 1973 Ford F-Series pickups and Bronco utility vehicles. Trav Henderson opened the shop in 2020 after returning from the United States Army Texas National Guard, where he had served from 2012 to 2018, including 1 deployment to Afghanistan in 2015. On the morning of April 3, 2026, Trav Henderson was 43 minutes into the installation of a rebuilt NP435 4-speed manual transmission into the 1972 Ford F-250 Highboy that had belonged to his grandfather Walter, his father Gus, and now to him. He was wearing a dark green long-sleeve work shirt with Henderson Heritage Restoration embroidered above the left breast pocket. He was wearing Wrangler jeans. He was wearing Justin Roper cowboy boots, brown, the same brand his grandfather had worn for 50 years. His 7-year-old daughter Ren was sitting on the front bumper of the F-250, drinking a Topo Chico mineral water through a paper straw and reading the morning's Dallas Morning News classifieds aloud to a 15-year-old quarter-horse mare named Sunday who was tied to the pole barn post 6 feet away. Ren had blonde hair, blue eyes, a missing front tooth 8 days ago, the previous Sunday after church, and a child-sized Stetson hat that her grandfather Walter had bought her at the Fredericksburg Western Wear Shop on her 6th birthday. The F-250 was Wimbledon white, single-cab, 8-foot bed, original 360 cubic inch V-Series V8 with 2-barrel motorcraft carburetor, original NP435 4-speed manual transmission, divorced NP205 transfer case, Dana 44 closed knuckle front axle, Dana 60 rear axle, 4.10 gears. The truck was on the list of the rarest 1972 Highboy production trim configurations in existence. Haggerty Insurance had valued it the previous month at approximately $78,000 in its current, 80% completed, restoration state. Conquer correct, it would be worth between $140,000 and $210,000. The truck was not for sale. The truck was the only thing in the entire world that Travis Henderson valued more than the 480 acres of hill country grazing land it stood on. At 10:17 in the morning, a United States Postal Service mail carrier in a white Grumman long-life vehicle pulled up to the Henderson Ranch mailbox at the end of the driveway. A quarter mile from the farmhouse, the mail carrier left a single certified mail envelope in the mailbox. The envelope bore the return address of Whitaker Auto Insurance Holdings, with offices in Dallas, Texas, and Highland Park. Trav Henderson walked down the driveway to collect the mail at 11:03. He opened the certified mail envelope on the wraparound porch of the farmhouse Otto Henderson had built in 1896. He read the letter inside. The letter was 3 pages long. It was signed at the bottom by Brent Whitaker, J.D., General Counsel of Whitaker Auto Insurance Holdings, and Sloan Whitaker, J.D., MBA, Chief Executive Officer. The letter informed Travis Henderson that Whitaker Auto Insurance Holdings was hereby denying the restoration insurance claim he had submitted in February for his 1972 Ford F-250 Highboy, on the grounds that internal investigation by Whitaker Insurance's Fraud Investigation Unit had concluded that the vehicle in question carried a salvage title, that the vehicle identification number had been altered or transferred from a previously totaled donor vehicle, and that Travis Henderson had filed a fraudulent insurance application. The letter ordered Trav to cease and desist from all further restoration work on the vehicle within 45 days, to provide Whitaker Insurance with complete documentation of vehicle origin, or to face civil legal action for insurance fraud in the Dallas County District Court. The letter cited a Texas Department of Motor Vehicles database record showing that the 1972 Ford F-250 chassis number had been associated with a totaled vehicle entry filed in Bexar County, Texas, in 1993. The letter included a copy of that database entry. Trav Henderson read the letter 4 times. He looked at the database entry. The vehicle identification number listed on the Whitaker database printout was F26HCJ12345. The vehicle identification number on his grandfather's 1972 Ford F-250 Highboy, the truck he had inherited from his father Gus in 2019, was F26HCJ12354, 2 digits transposed, a clerical error in the Whitaker Insurance database. a clerical error that Whitaker Insurance was now using as legal grounds to accuse a third-generation Texas Hill Country single father of insurance fraud and to force him to either prove the truck's origin or surrender his rights to insure and operate the vehicle. Trav Henderson folded the letter. He walked into the front room of the farmhouse. He opened the bottom drawer of the cherry wood writing desk that had belonged to his great-grandmother, Greta Hoffman Henderson, that had passed to his grandfather Walter, that had passed to his father Gus, that now belonged to him. He took out a manila folder. The manila folder was labeled in his grandfather Walter Henderson's hand in fountain pen blue ink. 1972 Ford F-250 Highboy, registration and maintenance. He opened the manila folder. Inside the folder was a Texas Department of Motor Vehicles vehicle registration receipt dated May 17, 1972, issued by the Gillespie County Tax Office, Fredericksburg, Texas, bearing the official Texas DMV seal, signed by then Gillespie County Tax Assessor Henrietta Vogel, registering the 1972 Ford F-250 Highboy in the name of Walter Henderson of Henderson Cattle Ranch, Fredericksburg, Texas, with chassis number F26HCJ1354. The registration was 54 years old. Below the registration was the original sales invoice from Bandera Ford, Bandera, Texas, dated May 12, 1972, signed by Bandera Ford General Sales Manager Conrad Kruger, selling the 1972 Ford F-250 Highboy, chassis F26HCJ12354, to Walter Henderson for $3,842.75, paid in full by personal check drawn on the First National Bank of Fredericksburg. Below the invoice was a copy of the Ford Motor Company build sheet for chassis F26HCJ12354, listing all production options. Build date September 29, 1971, Kansas City Assembly Plant production stamp. Below the build sheet was the Ford Motor Company warranty card, signed by Walter Henderson on May 17, 1972, mailed to Ford Motor Company headquarters in Dearborn, Michigan on May 20, 1972, with a Bandera, Texas postmark. Below the warranty card were 43 years of annual Texas DMV registration receipts, every receipt signed by Walter Henderson, every receipt referencing chassis F26HCJ12354, every receipt continuous from May 17, 1972 to May 14, 2015, the year Walter Henderson passed the truck to his son Gus. Below those receipts were the 11 years of registration receipts in Gus Henderson's name, 2015 to 2025. Below those was the registration receipt in Travis Henderson's name, dated November 20, 2019, the year Doc Henderson died. There were 54 years of documentation in a manila folder, in a cherrywood writing desk, in a hill country farmhouse, on a 480-acre ranch owned continuously by the same family for 133 years. Travis Henderson picked up his cell phone. He called the Texas Department of Motor Vehicles Regional Records Office in Austin. The call was answered by a senior records officer named Marcus Reynolds. Marcus Reynolds had served as a senior records officer at the Texas Department of Motor Vehicles in Austin, Texas for 31 years. He was 62 years old. He had grown up in Burnett, Texas. He was the son of a Burnett County deputy sheriff and a Burnett County school district elementary school teacher. He had served 4 years in the United States Army Military Police Corps after high school, mustered out as a sergeant in 1986, attended Texas State University on the GI Bill, and joined the Texas DMV Records Division in 1995. Marcus Reynolds knew the Texas Hill Country. Marcus Reynolds had also, in 1998, processed the transfer paperwork on a 1972 Ford F-250 Highboy from a deceased estate in Bexar County, Texas, that had been involved in a single-vehicle rollover accident on Interstate 35 near New Braunfels. The chassis number on that 1972 Ford F-250 Highboy was F26HCJ12345, 2 digits different from Travis Henderson's truck. The accident truck had been declared a total loss by the insurance carrier, had been sold for salvage to a Bexar County wrecking yard, had been parted out within 6 months, and had never carried a clean title again. Marcus Reynolds remembered the truck. He remembered the truck because he had personally processed the salvage title paperwork in November of 1998, and because his older brother Theodore Theo Reynolds, also a Burnett native, also a Texas DMV records officer, had grown up working summers at his uncle's auto restoration shop in Mason County, and had been the family member who had first explained to Marcus that the difference between a 1972 Ford F-250 Highboy with chassis F26HCJ12345 and One with chassis F-26HCJ12354 was not a clerical error, it was two completely different trucks. Built 480 units apart at the Kansas City assembly plant. Sold to two completely different first owners. When Travis Henderson called Marcus Reynolds at the Texas Department of Motor Vehicles Regional Records Office in Austin on the morning of April 3, 2026 and read out the chassis number on the Whitaker Insurance Database printout, F26HCJ12345, and the chassis number on his actual truck registration, F26HCJ12354, Marcus Reynolds did not need to look anything up. Marcus Reynolds knew. He said, "Mr. Henderson, please do not move from your location. I am driving to Fredericksburg this afternoon. I will be at your ranch by 4 o'clock. Please have the full Manila folder with you. Please do not contact Whitaker Auto Insurance Holdings until I arrive. Is that clear?" Trav Henderson said, "Yes, sir." Marcus Reynolds said, "Mr. Henderson, before I hang up, was your father's name Augustus Henderson?" "The veterinarian in Fredericksburg?" Trav said, "Yes, sir." Marcus Reynolds said, "Mr. Henderson, Doc Henderson treated my brother Theo's quarter-horse mare named Belle for a colic episode in 1994. Doc Henderson refused to bill us. He said he could not bill a fellow Texas Army veteran. Your father was a fine man, Mr. Henderson. I am very sorry for your loss. I will see you at 4 o'clock. Marcus Reynolds hung up. He picked up his Texas Department of Motor Vehicles state-issued cell phone. He called his brother Theo Reynolds, he said. "Theo, Whitaker Auto Insurance just tried to claim a 1972 Highboy in Gillespie County as salvage. They got the VIN wrong. The truck belongs to Doc Henderson's son. I am driving down this afternoon. Want to come?" Theo Reynolds said. "I will meet you at the Fredericksburg HEB at 3:30. Bring the case file from 1998. Marcus Reynolds said, "Already in the truck." Marcus Reynolds left the Texas Department of Motor Vehicles Regional Records Office in Austin at 1:14 in the afternoon. He arrived at the Henderson Cattle Ranch at 3:58. His brother Theo Reynolds was driving up the ranch driveway in a separate Ford F-150 Lariat 1 minute behind him. Marcus and Theo Reynolds spent 4 hours and 22 minutes in the front room of the Henderson Cattle Ranch farmhouse on the afternoon of April 3, 2026. Marcus Reynolds laid out the Whitaker Insurance cease and desist letter, the Whitaker database printout showing chassis F26HCJ12345, and his own personal case file from 1998 showing the salvage title, paperwork for the totaled 1972 Ford F-250 Highboy from Bexar County. Theo Reynolds laid out a stack of Texas DMV computer printouts from the regional database, including a 43-year continuous registration history for chassis F26HCJ12354, a build sheet match from Ford Motor Company archives, and a side-by-side comparison of the two chassis numbers showing they were two completely different vehicles separated by 480 units on the Kansas City assembly plant production line. The case was open and shut. Whitaker Auto Insurance Holdings had transposed 2 digits in a clerical error in their internal database. They had accused Travis Henderson's, a third-generation Texas Hill Country single father whose family had owned the truck for 54 consecutive years, of insurance fraud and salvage title fraud, based on a database entry that referenced an entirely different vehicle. Sloan Whitaker, chief executive officer of Whitaker Auto Insurance Holdings, had personally signed the cease and desist letter. Marcus Reynolds said, "Mr. Henderson, the Texas Department of Motor Vehicles is going to issue a formal letter of authentication tomorrow morning. The letter will state in unambiguous language that chassis F26HCJ12354, your truck, has carried a continuous clean title in the state of Texas since May 17, 1972, and has at no time been associated with the salvaged Bexar County vehicle F26HEJ12345 referenced in the Whitaker Insurance database. The letter will be delivered to Whitaker Auto Insurance Holdings with copies to the Texas Department of Insurance, the Texas Attorney General's Office, and the Dallas Morning News." Theo Reynolds said, "Mr. Henderson, the Texas Department of Insurance regulates the Texas auto insurance industry. They take a very dim view of insurance carriers that file fraudulent denial letters against Texas consumers. Whitaker Auto Insurance Holdings is going to face a regulatory inquiry. They will lose their Texas operating license if the Department of Insurance determines that this was not a single clerical error but a pattern of conduct. Based on what we are seeing in the Whitaker Insurance database, this is not the first time they have done this. I will be filing a formal complaint with the Texas Department of Insurance tomorrow morning." Marcus Reynolds said, "Mr. Henderson, may I make a recommendation? I understand from your father, from Doc Henderson, before he died, that the Henderson family does not typically pursue legal recourse against people who wrong them. I understand the hill country German-Texan tradition of accepting injustice quietly. But this is different, Mr. Henderson. This is a publicly traded insurance corporation in Dallas, Texas, headed by a chief executive officer with a Yale law degree, who personally signed a letter accusing you of a felony based on a clerical error her own staff failed to catch. If you do not push back against this, Mr. Henderson, they will do it to another Texas family next month, and another one the month after that. Do you understand? Trav Henderson said. Yes, sir, Marcus Reynolds said. Mr. Henderson, the Texas Department of Motor Vehicles is going to hold a press event in Dallas at Whitaker Insurance Corporate Headquarters in 2 weeks. The Texas Department of Insurance will attend. The Texas Attorney General's office will attend. I have asked my brother Theo to invite the Dallas Morning News and a journalist named Maddox Reyes who covered the Dallas insurance industry for 13 years. Will you attend the press event with your daughter, Mr. Henderson's? Will you speak? Trav Henderson looked at his 7-year-old daughter, Wren, who had been playing in the south yard with the quarter-horse mare named Sunday for most of the afternoon. He looked at the manila folder containing 54 years of Henderson family documentation. He looked at the photograph on the front room mantelpiece, his grandfather Walter Henderson, his father Gus, and himself, the three of them standing in front of the same 1972 Ford F-250 Highboy at the Henderson Cattle Ranch on his 16th birthday in 2007. He said, Mr. Reynolds, I will be there. I will speak. Marcus Reynolds said, Mr. Henderson, thank you. Your father would be very proud. Marcus and Theo Reynolds drove back to Austin at 8:23 in the evening. The hill country sun set at 7:47. The crickets came out at 8:03. The press event was held at the Whitaker Auto Insurance Holdings corporate headquarters in downtown Dallas, Texas, on the afternoon of April 17, 2026. The headquarters occupied the top 12 floors of a glass and steel office tower on McKinney Avenue. The lobby was Italian marble, brushed bronze, and double-height ceiling. The corporate logo, a stylized capital W in cobalt blue, adorned the wall behind the reception desk in 8-foot brushed metal. The press event was held in the ground floor lobby because the Whitaker Insurance General Counsel had refused to allow the Texas Department of Motor Vehicles to convene the event on Whitaker corporate property. The Texas Attorney General's office had responded by serving Whitaker Auto Insurance with a subpoena for the database records related to the Henderson denial letter, which had forced Whitaker Insurance to permit the press event to proceed. 148 invited guests attended. The guest list included 2 Texas state senators, 3 Texas state representatives, the Texas Commissioner of Insurance, 3 members of the Texas Attorney General's office, the Dallas Morning News, the Houston Chronicle, the Austin American Statesman, the San Antonio Express News, Fox 4 Dallas, Kixan Austin, Kienz 5 San Antonio, 2 attorneys from the Texas Department of Motor Vehicles Legal Division, 11 independent insurance industry analysts, and a journalist from Robeson County Public Press named Daniel Strickland, who had flown in from North Carolina at Marcus Reynolds' personal invitation. Travis Henderson arrived at the Whitaker Insurance lobby at 2:38 in the afternoon. He was wearing his father's dark gray western-cut suit, which had been altered the previous week to fit Trav's shoulders. He was wearing dark Justin dress boots and his grandfather Walter's bolo tie. He was carrying the manila folder containing the 54 years of Henderson family documentation. He was holding the hand of his 7-year-old daughter Wren Henderson, who was wearing a navy blue dress, white knee socks, and the same child-sized Stetson hat her grandfather had bought her at the Fredericksburg Western Wear Shop on her 6th birthday. Marcus and Theo Reynolds were waiting in the lobby in matching dark gray Texas DMV uniforms. Sloan Whitaker was standing at the head of the lobby in a charcoal gray Carolina Herrera suit, beside her father Reginald Whitaker, 68, founder of Whitaker Energy Capital, who had insisted on attending the event in person despite his daughter's repeated requests that he stay in Houston. Her husband Brent Whitaker, 41, JD, General Counsel of Whitaker Auto Insurance Holdings, stood 10 feet behind his wife. Marcus Reynolds walked to the podium at 3:11 in the afternoon. He introduced himself. He introduced the Texas Department of Motor Vehicles. He introduced Texas Department of Insurance Commissioner Cassandra Salazar, who was present in the second row. He read the Texas Department of Motor Vehicles' formal letter of authentication aloud. The letter confirmed that chassis F26HCJ12354, the Henderson family's 1972 Ford F-250 Highboy, had carried a continuous clean title in the state of Texas since May 17, 1972. The letter confirmed that the chassis was not and had never been associated with the Salvage Bexar County vehicle F26HCJ12345 that Whitaker Insurance had referenced in their denial letter. The letter concluded with the formal request that Whitaker Auto Insurance Holdings issue a written retraction of all allegations made against Mr. Travis Henderson, that the Texas Department of Insurance open a regulatory inquiry into Whitaker Insurance's fraud detection methodology, and that the Texas Attorney General's office investigate whether Whitaker Insurance had engaged in similar conduct against other Texas consumers. Then Marcus Reynolds said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite Mr. Travis Henderson of Fredericksburg, Texas, to the podium to say a few words about his truck." Trav Henderson walked to the podium. He set the manila folder on the podium. He looked out at the room. He spoke directly into the microphone. "Mrs. Whitaker, my grandfather Walter Henderson bought this truck at Bandera Ford in May of 1972. The Texas Department of Motor Vehicles just authenticated the chassis. This truck has carried a clean Texas title for 54 years. You missed the receipts. You missed me. You missed my daughter." The lobby was silent for 11 seconds. Sloan Whitaker did not move. Her father, Reginald Whitaker, 68 years old, founder of Whitaker Energy Capital, who had bankrolled his daughter's insurance company with $170 million in startup capital in 2022, turned slowly to look at his daughter. Trav Henderson stepped back from the microphone. He walked to where his 7-year-old daughter Ren was standing beside Marcus Reynolds. He picked Ren up. He set her on the corner of the lobby reception desk, where she could see over the heads of the press attendees. He said, "Ren, this is your great-grandfather Walter's truck. This is your grandfather Gus's truck. This is your father's truck. And one day, baby, this is going to be your truck." Ren Henderson reached out and touched the brim of her child-sized Stetson hat. She said, "Daddy, is the lady going to give us back our paperwork?" Trav Henderson said, "Yes, baby. The lady is going to give us back our paperwork." Daniel Strickland of Robeson County Public Press raised his digital recorder. He approached Sloan Whitaker. He said, Ms. Whitaker." Daniel Strickland, Robeson County Public Press. 2 weeks ago, your insurance company mailed a cease and desist letter to Mr. Henderson based on a clerical error in your internal database. The error was a transposition of 2 digits in a vehicle identification number, a fact that any first-year claims adjuster would have caught with a simple manual cross-check. May I ask you, Ms. Whitaker, who at your insurance company is responsible for this error? Was it your general counsel, your husband Brent Whitaker, who signed the letter? Was it your chief operating officer? Or did the error originate with you personally? Sloan Whitaker did not respond. Reginald Whitaker, her father, stepped between his daughter and the digital recorder. He said, "Mr. Strickland, my daughter has no comment at this time." Reginald Whitaker took his daughter by the elbow. He walked her out of the lobby. They did not return. The Whitaker Auto Insurance Holdings story ran on the front page of the business section of the Dallas Morning News on Sunday, April 19, 2026. The headline read, "Texas DMV authenticates Fredericksburg rancher's truck after Whitaker Insurance false fraud claim." The story was picked up by the Houston Chronicle on Monday, the Austin American Statesman on Tuesday, the San Antonio Express News on Wednesday, the Wall Street Journal Texas edition on Thursday, and the Insurance Journal National edition on Friday. By Friday afternoon, April 24th, 4 things had happened. The Texas Department of Insurance opened a formal regulatory inquiry into Whitaker Auto Insurance Holdings for unprofessional conduct in fraud determination practices. The Texas Attorney General's office issued a civil investigative demand against Whitaker Auto Insurance for records related to all denied claims in the past 5 years involving allegations of salvage title fraud or vehicle identification number discrepancies. The Texas Department of Motor Vehicles issued a public bulletin advising all Texas auto insurance carriers of best practices for cross-referencing vehicle identification numbers prior to issuing denial letters, citing the Whitaker Insurance case by name. Hagerty Insurance contacted Travis Henderson with a personal offer from a Hagerty senior executive to underwrite a 5-year restoration insurance policy on his 1972 Ford F-250 Highboy at preferential rates, including coverage for completion of the restoration to course-correct status. Trav Henderson accepted. On Monday, May 4th, the Texas Department of Insurance issued formal sanctions against Whitaker Auto Insurance Holdings. A $1 million civil penalty, mandatory adoption of new fraud determination procedures within 60 days, and a 90-day probationary review of the company's Texas operating license. On Wednesday, May 6th, Reginald Whitaker, Sloan's father, founder of Whitaker Energy Capital, terminated his $170 million credit facility to Whitaker Auto Insurance Holdings. On Friday, May 8, Brent Whitaker, Sloan's husband, general counsel of Whitaker Auto Insurance, filed for divorce in Dallas County District Court, citing irreconcilable differences. The press would later report that Brent Whitaker had argued internally against sending the Henderson denial letter and had been overruled by his wife. On Monday, May 11th, Sloan Whitaker announced her resignation as chief executive officer of Whitaker Auto Insurance Holdings effective immediately. On Friday, May 15th, Whitaker Auto Insurance Holdings settled a civil lawsuit filed by Travis Henderson for defamation, bad faith insurance conduct, and emotional damages in the amount of $1,200,000. Trav Henderson accepted the settlement. He distributed the proceeds as follows: $800,000 into a trust account at the Hill Country Bank of Fredericksburg, managed by a Gillespie County German-Texan attorney named Clara Wilhelmina Schmidt, designated for Ren Henderson's primary education at Fredericksburg Independent School District, secondary education at Tivy High School in Kerrville, undergraduate education at Texas A&M University, and any subsequent graduate or professional education she might choose to pursue. $200,000 to the Sarah Henderson Memorial Breast Cancer Research Fund at MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston, established in memory of his late wife. $140,000 retained by Travis Henderson to complete the restoration of the 1972 Ford F-250 Highboy to course-correct condition. $60,000 to expand Henderson Heritage Restoration, hire one additional restoration technician, and purchase a second restoration lift for the Pole Barn Shop. Travis Henderson did not buy himself anything. He kept the original Texas DMV registration receipt from May 17, 1972, signed by Gillespie County Tax Assessor Henrietta Vogel. He framed it in a walnut shadow box. He hung the shadow box on the wall of the front room of the Henderson Cattle Ranch farmhouse, beside the photograph of his grandfather Walter, his father Gus, and himself standing in front of the same Ford F-250 Highboy on his 16th birthday in 2007. Below the framed registration, on a small brass plate, is the following inscription: Chassis F26HCJ12354 1972 Ford F-250 Highboy Wimbledon White acquired by Walter Henderson, May 1972, inherited by Augustus Henderson, May 2015. Inherited by Travis Henderson, November 2019 for Ren Henderson, forever. It was the evening of June 14, 2026. The hill country sun was setting at 8:43. The temperature had dropped from 96 degrees in the afternoon to 78 at sunset. The crickets were beginning. The Henderson Cattle Ranch south pasture smelled of cut hay and limestone dust. Travis Henderson saddled the quarter-horse mare named Sunday at 6:45 in the evening. He helped his 7-year-old daughter Ren climb into the saddle. He saddled the 8-year-old quarter-horse gelding named Monday, Sunday's stable, companion for the past 6 years, for himself. They rode together down the ranch driveway, past the iron sign that read Henderson Cattle Ranch, Gillespie County, Texas, Est, 1893, past the wooden plaque that read We are German, we are Texan. We are here, and out to the south pasture where Walter Henderson had run Hereford cattle for 43 years and Otto Henderson had broken sod. With 2 oxen in 1893, they reached the limestone outcrop at the fence at 7:14. Ren Henderson said, "Daddy, did the lady at the insurance company give us back our paperwork yet?" Travis Henderson said, "Yes, baby, the lady gave us back our paperwork. And she gave us a little extra to help take care of you." Trent said, "Daddy, is the lady still sad?" Trav said, "Yes, baby. I think the lady is still sad, and I think her father is very sad too." Ren said, "Daddy, why is her father sad?" Trav said, "Because, Ren, the lady made a mistake, and she would not say she was sorry. And when you do not say you are sorry, sometimes you lose more than you thought you would. The lady's father had to choose. He chose his company. Sometimes daddies have to make hard choices, baby." Ren said, "Daddy, will you always say you are sorry when you make a mistake?" Trav Henderson said, "Yes, Ren. I will always say I'm sorry when I make a mistake, even when it is hard, even when I do not want to, because, baby, I never want to lose you. Not ever." Ren said, "Daddy, did Mama say she was sorry before she had to leave?" Travis Henderson reached across the saddle. He took his daughter's small hand in his. He said, "Yes, baby, Mama said she was sorry. She told you she was sorry. She told me she was sorry, and she told God she was sorry, and then she went to be with him, baby, because Mama was tired. And God needed to take care of her. And one day, baby, we are all going to see her again." Ren said, "Daddy, I miss Mama," Trav said. "I miss Mama too, baby, every single day. They rode back to the farmhouse in the gathering dark. The Hill Country Stars came out at 9:06. Travis Henderson put his daughter to bed at 9:30 in the upstairs bedroom that had been her grandfather Gus's bedroom, his great-grandfather Walter's bedroom, and his great-great-grandfather Otto's bedroom in 1896. He kissed her forehead. He turned out the light. He walked downstairs to the front room of the farmhouse Otto Henderson had built in 1896. He opened the bottom drawer of his great-grandmother Greta's cherrywood writing desk. He took out a photograph of his wife Sarah Becker Henderson, taken at the Fredericksburg Christmas market in December of 2022, 10 months before she died. He held the photograph, he said, quietly, to the front room and to the empty farmhouse and to the woman he had loved since 7th grade at Fredericksburg Middle School. Sarah, the truck is going to be okay. Ren is going to be okay. I am going to be okay. We are going to be okay. I love you, baby. Guten Abend. He put the photograph back in the drawer. He turned out the front room light. He walked upstairs. He slept in the pole barn behind the farmhouse, beneath the same metal roof that Walter Henderson had built in 1978. The 1972 Ford F-250 Highboy sat under a freshly installed Edelbrock 4-barrel manifold and a rebuilt 360 cubic inch FE V8, 96% restored, awaiting only the final installation of the rebuilt original Motorcraft carburetor and the original Hurst Schiefer transmission shifter. On the wall above the workbench in a walnut shadow box hung the original Texas Department of Motor Vehicles registration receipt from May 17, 1972, signed by Gillespie County Tax Assessor Henrietta Vogel. Below it on a small brass plate was the inscription, Donka Opa, Donka Papa. Thank you, grandfather, thank you, father. The truck is with Ren now. The ride is done.